Welcome to Downshift, my name is Matt, and this is the Audi Q5 Sportback. Last week, we covered all of the most interesting and coolest features on this thing, but this week, we finished our time with it and we're gonna hit the highlights, the best and the rest, thanks to our friends at Audi Milwaukee. Let's get into it. Number one, and I kind of hate to use this word because it's going to come off worse and way more harsh than I really mean it to be, but it's a little boring. Or maybe I should use the word vanilla, but it just kind of is. And I don't really mean behind the wheel. Behind the wheel, we actually will talk about it on the very good side of the video. In fact, it's one of my favorite things about this car, but just the rest of it is just kind of, it's one of those things where everything is just good, but nothing's like great or wow or in your face. It looks decent, but not crazy. The interior is nice, but again, nothing like flashy like you would get in a Benz. And even the infotainment and the software stuff, there's no like crazy technology gimmicks or things to make you go, wow. It's just, everything is good. This is good car. And number two, it's a little bit small. The Q5 used to be the biggest of the trio, but now the X3 and the GLC are a bit newer and they've gotten bigger. In the rear seats here, especially for headroom, you are straining a little bit, and that's largely due to the sportback shape. But as far as legroom goes, I actually have a decent amount, and you have the thoughtful cutouts in the back of the front seats. And then the rear seats here, they do recline, and I believe you can get them heated as well. And the other rear seat stuff is actually pretty good. You've got fold down cup holders, you've got dual air vents, you've got a climate zone, you've got multiple chargers down there, map pockets, and plenty of foot space. Plus a nice pano roof to keep things nice and airy. And then your trunk. It's still a decent size, but again, with the Sportback, it does eat into cargo space a little bit. And even in the non-Sportback trims, it is a little bit smaller than the X3's trunk. And then you can fold the seats from the trunk, and that's something that's increasingly rare these days. But those are the only two places that I can ding this car. It's a little bit vanilla, and it's due for a new generation, which would make things a bit bigger back here, but that means there's a lot of great stuff going on with this Q5, so let's talk about that. But yeah, number one, and my favorite thing about this thing, is the driving experience. This is surprisingly excellent to drive. You've got a very sophisticated suspension setup going on underneath, and you can even get air ride if you want. You've got a great engine. It's a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder. It's got a mild hybrid system engaged, 261 horsepower, 273 pound-feet of torque. It sounds pretty decent, so it's muted and quiet, but it sounds okay. And it's good for 25 mpg, so it's fairly economical as well. But to be honest, it's the transmission that I find myself really gravitating towards. It's 7-speed DCT. And the weird thing about that is the SQ8, the sportier version of this, gets an 8-speed normal torque converted automatic, whereas this one's the dual clutch. So interesting there, but the transmission's awesome. It's really sharp without sacrificing any of the smoothness when you're wanting to drive at a relaxed pace. You've got plenty of cabin isolation. Even the underbody is coated in sound deadening. The whole underbody here is pretty much covered up. I mean, I'm really impressed behind the wheel here. And the second thing that we're going to talk about is price. And I usually save this point to the end of the video, but this is a pretty big deal. And if you've already watched our featured tour video from last week, you'll already know what's up. But in terms of price here, the Q5 starts at about $44,000. It's a little bit extra for the Sportback, but even still, that's several $1,000s cheaper than the BMW and the Mercedes. As tested, this thing is just a hair under 60 grand, but you get plenty of car for that money. You love to see the value proposition and the bang for your buck that you get here on something that drives so well. And I know earlier I said it was a little boring looking, but I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean it's not super flashy and in your face like, well, really anything else. But that does mean it's still pretty handsome then. This particular Sportback is draped in ultra blue, which is this super intense blue color that looks amazing. And it's got the silver accents. This car has the S-Line package, but it does not have optioned the black optics package. So all of the trim details are bright silver. And honestly, I think that complements the ultra blue better than the black would. And then speaking of the S-Line trim, this is the more sporty appearance package. It's supposed to look more SQ5 than Q5. And it fits well with the Sportback theme. The S-Line badge is on your front fender, which is very AMG. And you've got a revised grille design. It's not the more sedate lines, but a little bit more aggressive meshish pattern. And it's a more aggressive face in your lower fascia. And you've got a more aggressive diffuser out back as well. And you have S kick plates on your door jambs. Your headlights are a cool digital matrix style. It may not look crazy, but looks better than the GLC. And the fourth thing also surprised me, and that's that this thing is surprisingly rugged. We all know how Audi achieved their legendary status through their rally heritage, and their pioneering Quattro all-wheel drive system has been refined over the years and integrated into every single one of the cars that they sell. But this Q5 goes even a step further than that. It has a bunch of off-roading kit in here. It has an off-road mode. If you've got the air suspension, the car will raise itself up to give you more ground clearance. You've got a hill descent button. You've got like tolerance cameras on either side of your front and back wheels, so you can spot your line and follow the trail and not rub your wheels on logs and things. I mean, I would never even fathom taking an X3 off of the pavement, and I know the GLC for this new update generation or facelift, whatever they're calling it, is more off-roady focused, and it also has an off-road mode. But again, I'm gonna feel more at home off the pavement in this Q5 than either of those other two, that's for sure. And this was interesting. You see this little thing right here? This is the sportback. It's supposed to look all sporty, but it's also got some muscle to it. The towing capacity on a Q5 can be up to 4,400 pounds. And that actually is pretty good. If you think of a non-luxury competitor in this size segment, you could think of like the CR-V from Honda, and that's only towing about 1,500 pounds. So this is way more here. And then the interior. Again, kind of vanilla, nothing super flashy like the Benz, but it's just good. I'm gonna say a bunch of classic Audi review stuff. The build is super solid, the materials are very good, and it's real edgy journalism. It's the same old story, but it is, and they just do a good job in here. Everything fits together really, really well, and everything has a nice premium feel to it. There's no creaks or rattling in here. You do get heated seats, no cooled one on this one, and you can option heated rear seats. And of course we've got that nice pano roof above us, letting in light, making it nice and airy in our beige cabin. And of course we've got a heated steering wheel because this is Wisconsin after all. And at the risk of sounding 90 years old, I do really like this beige interior. And then in terms of technology, it's just like the interior design and materials point. It's nothing super flashy in here, but it's everything you actually want and will use, and it all makes total sense and is easy to use. You've got a new, since at least 2021, touchscreen for your infotainment system. It's very tablet-like, but it's classic Audi software, which means it's easy to navigate. And you don't have these useless gimmicks confusing you and cluttering up the system. You do have wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, nice. And you've got pretty decent 360 cameras. And touchscreen has haptics in it, and that's why you don't have the MMI wheel in front of your gear selector, so you've got more room for storage. And then, interestingly, you do have that screen off button under your climate controls. I hear people talk about this a lot, actually. Do people actually do this? Do they push the button and turn their screen off because it's, quote, distracting? But anyway, over in front of your steering wheel, you've got Audi's virtual cockpit. Super nice. Audi was one of the first people to do it, and they still do it super, super well. The map graphics are insane. You've got loads of features in there. And then your steering wheel is really nice, and you've got the heated steering wheel button right there. And then interestingly, and I love this about Audi because they're just different, the blind spot monitor isn't embedded in the mirror for your wing mirror, but it's on the inside of the wing mirror housing. Again, same theme. Nothing you don't need, but everything you do. Easy, simple Audi. Final thoughts. So that's the best and the rest of the Audi Q5. And I have to say, it's pretty much exactly what I expected, although I was surprised by just how well and how good it was to drive. In fact, it's pretty great everywhere. The only problem is it's a little bit vanilla. It doesn't have the same dynamics of the BMW, but it's comfier, and it doesn't have the crazy interior and tech of the Benz, but you can tell this is gonna last longer and it's gonna age a lot better. Overall, I really liked it. So thanks again to our friends at Audi Milwaukee for letting us have a go, and we'll see you in the next one.